Okay, take a deep breath in. I'm going to count to 3, and then I'll let you exhale it. Okay, shall we inhale? 1, 2, 3, exhale. Again, نفس عميق، امسكوها بعد 3 وبعدين طلعوها. نفس عميق، امسكوا 1 2 3 exhale. One more time. نفس عميق, hold it, 3, 2, 1, exhale. Okay, I'm going to ask you 3 questions before I let you keep your eyes closed. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. First of all, why did you join Scientific College of Design? 1. 2. What is your passion in arts, in design, in anything related? Why do you love it so much? Or maybe you don't, but why? Number 3, what is your goal? What do you want to do after you leave this place? Do you want to be a leader? Do you want to be a follower? What do you want to do? Think about it. With these 3 questions, open your eyes and please sit down. Yes, please. Okay. About, let's say, 30 years ago or more, I was born in a hospital. And you know, in hospitals, you're attracted to people. Ili رايح, ili jai, you have different faces. And all these faces, as I was in the crib, attracted me. And I wanted to do something about it, but I didn't know what. The emotions that I see in their faces, something really pushed me. At the age of 3, I was adopted. And I used to go to the Omani Women Association practically every single day. And I used to take pencils, and all I do was scribble. There were not shapes, there were nothing. There were just scribbles and scribbles and scribbles. And at home, by the age of 4.5, I used to take eggs in the refrigerator, and I said, okay, people look like eggs somehow. So I used to take the eggs, put them on a paper, and trace it. And I look at the egg, and I was like, well, okay, now what? Take another egg, and take a 3rd egg, 4th egg. And I used to put them all together, but I realized it's too flat. Of course, I didn't understand the term flat there, but it just didn't look like people. I used to get angry, and I used to crush the eggs. With these eggs, I had no breakfast, no scrambled eggs, no pancakes, nothing. Mom was like, you're grounded. How many eggs are you going to break? I was like, well, it doesn't look like the image that I want. And I used to tear up all the papers and throw it in the garbage. She used to collect every single piece of paper. Some of them she had to tape and put it in a small folder for me. Now, what you don't know, or what you see in front of you is, yes, I have physical disability. But what you don't know is I have a very hard time memorizing. Very, very, very hard time memorizing. And if you give me more than 3 or 4 steps in one go, I get lost. So I used to work with drawings and pictures and colors. That's how I used to remember things. And some of you, well, most of you were in Omani schools. And everything was pure memorization. I used to sit in the back of the class, like most of you were today, and I used to get out my crayons, and I would just scribble and scribble and scribble. And even when we had to take notes in school, I would use colors to remind me of certain things. I would use shapes to remind me of certain things. And those were my flashcards. Even in, for example, Islamic classes, I couldn't memorize the Quran, I couldn't memorize the ahadith, and it was way too much for me. I used to sit again, and I used to use colors to try to remember. Now, I couldn't remember everything. I used to have to write things down. And teachers used to think it was a joke, and I was mocking. They used to kick me out of the class all the time. As years went by and education, like books or subjects started becoming more difficult, I was really struggling. I was acing my art classes, but I was struggling academically. And because of that, I had to keep jumping from one school to another, because back then we didn't have support classes for people that needed aid. By the time I hit teenager, I was so frustrated with people. Everybody was judgy, especially girls. If I didn't wear the same t-shirt as you, you wouldn't be my friend. If I wasn't wearing the same kind of shoes, you weren't my friends. So I used to get frustrated. Half of these things I couldn't wear. So I used to go home every night, open the fashion TV channel, and I'd sit there and sketch my own designs so that I can wear it. Art for me was not just about drawing. It was about removing, releasing the anger and the stress that I couldn't tell someone in their face. After teenage years, I decided I didn't want to draw people anymore. Because I was like, every time I draw people, it makes me so frustrated because these people don't even accept me. So why should I draw them? A lot of my relatives were into fashion design, henna design, and stuff. And so I was like, oh, I can do this too. So I started creating and creating and creating. And I was like, but this is not challenging enough. And if something is not challenging enough for me, I don't continue it. So out the window it went. I started doing sceneries and nature. The typical traditional art, as I would say. Thank you. It's okay, you can leave it there. And still, it was not challenging. At this point, all I was doing was trying to find myself. I was copying everything I saw in front of me, training the eyes. As I was jumping schools, I landed in the very last 2 years in an American school. Because if I stayed in the Omani schools, I wouldn't have been able to graduate. Because I was basically failing all my subjects, and I was only good in art. When I moved to the American school, I was challenged with my art. Instead of giving me 11th grade art, they started giving me second-year college art. And they said, do it. I said, well, I'm too young to do it. And they said, do it. And one of the stories, very short, quickly, my art teacher knew if I wasn't challenged enough, I wouldn't do it. And there was a lot in my very last year to build my portfolio. He told me, you need to do portraits of people. And not just any portraits, you need to do pointillism. Does everybody know what pointillism is? Yes? No? It's when you draw something and you have to do dots, 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 yeah? Okay. So I was like, he's not going to know if I drew or if I painted the background with black. He's not going to know. So I handed it the first time, and he said, did you do it the way you're supposed to? And I couldn't lie to him. I said, no. He ripped it up, do it again, do it again, do it again. I had to do it 7 times. And it took me 3 months to actually finish it. He says, now you're ready to actually take on things. If you don't overcome what is the hardest thing that you find, you cannot move forward. If things are easy come, you cannot move forward, correct? And then he made me do more portraits, and more portraits. I told him, why are you abusing me with all these portraits? He said, because you don't like them. That's the pointillism. He says, I want you to be able to accept people the way they are. Art is not just about looking at a beautiful picture. There's other meanings behind it. It's how you relate to it with your eyes, with your heart, with your mind. I came to scientific college for 2 semesters. And although it was the foundation year, I didn't get into the major yet. I was struggling because everything I had, again, we had a few practicals, but a lot of my subjects also were theory. So I was barely passing. And I said, is this the only way for me? I had an opportunity to travel to Jordan, and I left because I wanted to do graphic design. And I decided to change that. And I got into animation, filmmaking, and script writing. And during this time in Jordan, when I got into this college, it wasn't the books. It was you in front of a computer, and how can you create? It was challenging in the beginning because I was so used to looking at things and just making replicates of it. But to start from completely scratch, it was a challenge. Because every time you create something and they say, well, that's not you. And you go through a whole process of trying to find, what are you in art? Who are you in art? I left college. I wasn't able to finish my last term. I had to come back to Amman. And I decided, with my portfolio, I can maybe start working. Every single place I went to, they said, you don't have a certificate, you don't have a bachelor's degree, you have a physical disability. And the list goes on. And I questioned myself, why are people not ready for people like me? So I decided the only way I can start speaking for myself is through art. So I held the first exhibition, I held the second exhibition, I held the third exhibition, and fourth, and it kept going on for an entire year, just to get people to see, look beyond appearances. By then, in 2010, I was introduced to iPad art. I went online and I started Googling what iPad art is. And things that took me almost 1 hour to do, I was able to do it in 15, 20 minutes. And I said, okay, this is a whole new world. How can I develop it? And as I was doing these exhibitions, people started saying, did you hear about that girl who doesn't have hands, she draws? Well, I'm not that girl who doesn't have hands. Look beyond that. And I had to continue for almost 2 years, exhibitions after exhibitions after exhibitions, just to prove that I can do it. Little did I realize I was stressing so much on what I can do and how capable I am, and not really focusing on how creative I can be. There's a difference. You can copy something and be like, wow, you have the skills. But the difference is, how can you create it? Like, how can you make something out of it? Something with your touch in it. Something different. So I wanted to challenge myself a little more. I started researching with the Omani clothings. And I actually went to a tailor for about 3 months, and I told him, teach me how to stitch. Teach me from a design that I do, turn it into a material, and take this material and put it on the canvas. Because when I look at traditional Omani clothing or traditional jewelries, I don't just see it as an accessory. It's an art. Somebody sat there and tried to create this. صح? We don't appreciate these things. I learned how to stitch the tassels. I learned how to make the jewelry. I learned how they designed the musars, and I took everything and I put it on a canvas, and I wanted people to look at it as a piece of art. After moving on, I remembered for so many years I refused to do faces because I couldn't accept that people could not accept me. And I realized it's not the society that has a problem, it's me. In order for society to accept, I have to educate and advocate. So I decided to relearn how to do portraits. And I started in 2012, and I gave myself 3 years to master them. All, of course, by the iPad art. And I asked friends and family to keep sending me their pictures. And I would start. And it would start from 5 hours to finish one. And the more details I did, the more time it took. By the end of 2015, I managed to make it look like a photograph. I'm just going to flip through it a little quicker. It started creating a social buzz on social media, and then people started recognizing the work and started asking commissioned art, portraits. So then I asked myself, what now? What else can I do? Still being inspired with Omani culture and heritage, I wanted to jazz it up a little bit. I wanted to target the youth. And so I took the designs of clothing and stuff, and I started making pop art with it, with neon colors, all the silhouettes from different areas. And I decided I just didn't want people to look at it as a painting, to be able to feel proud as an Omani to wear something different. From t-shirts to bags to pouches and so forth. You remember when I said this whole time I was trying to prove myself that I'm capable as an artist, but I forgot the meaning of really creating. So I went back with myself and I asked myself, who am I? So these are 2 images of myself, projecting myself, who I am to people, and who am I to myself. I'll just go back to this one. So what I did was, I had a huge paper, almost 6 meters long. I laid on it, traced myself. I put a lot of chalk on my back, traced myself from the front and from the back. And then I got my mom to lay down, and I traced her as well. I believe I am like a bottle inside. I have my positive energy and I have my negative energy. And these 2 fuse together and create chemicals that give me this energy to create art. That's how I see myself. And the black shadow in the back is basically my mother supporting when I feel like I don't believe in myself. The second one is basically we all go through challenges. We all have holes and we have circles. Sometimes we end in the same point more than one time. But we're still standing. No matter what hurricanes, what rain, whatever, we're still standing. صح? I decided to develop the idea of using digital art with inspired Omani patterns and make it a little bit more funky. And then people started questioning me, why don't you put faces? And I question, does a face identify who you really are? It's the heart. And I really wanted to focus on the beauties of what we wear rather than what we look like as an identity. This artwork, I then started traveling around, and I landed in Qatar for an art residency for 3 weeks. And they told me, Sophia, we want you to be inspired by the environment in Qatar, about Islamic art and Qatar itself. What can you create? So I got tired of doing just canvases. So I took tiles, and about 8 meters by 2 meters size, I sat and worked on for 4 weeks. And now it's in the Islamic Museum of Qatar, inspired by Iranian and Turkish art. I love Kuma designs on the very top, and there has been a move with mandala designs, and I decided, how can I use the Kuma designs and turn them into mandala designs? And then from there, I started creating t-shirts and pillows, different home decors. I'm always trying different things because even you as an artist, if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, you get bored. You always have to look for something new. Try challenging yourself. Even if it doesn't work out the first time, you keep going on. I always love handmade cards. Instead of seeing the cards that you see in the stores, those are very generic and very commercial. I believe when you make something from yourself, it's different. I didn't forget my graphic work. At this point, I was working for someone for almost a year in the film industry, and I was a script writer and a storyboarder. And I decided to leave because I used to sit for 14 hours in the room among 4 walls, and I wasn't really creating. I was just doing the normal tasks like everybody else. And I decided to leave that and freelance. And I freelanced for almost 4 years. During this time, I was trying to test the market. What is it that we need? And there was a lot of small businesses popping up, and I decided, okay, I'm going to get into graphic design again. At the same time, I don't want to lose my art skills, and I felt like we have a lot of kids who have skills and have talents, but we don't have enough facilities in art here. So I decided to start teaching. With the little knowledge that I know, I started with 5 kids. And this is in 2015. I started with 5 kids, and I worked with them for over a year. And then I decided, why not have an art community studio where I just don't target kids, but teenagers, adults, and so forth, whoever's interested in art. And for me, art is not just, as I said, it's not about doing a pretty picture, but it's building confidence in yourself. It's looking at things differently. Today, when you teach kids art, tomorrow when they become members of a certain company, they learn to innovate. You're training your mind to think way out of the box. So then, about 2 years ago, I opened an art studio, and I started teaching and teaching and teaching. And I had about 150 students, not all in one go, but from different ages. And then I realized, for me to just continue to teach is not enough. I want others to come and teach. And not just teach, but actually showcase what different type of arts we have in Oman and also outside. About a few months ago, I then decided to open a small art gallery within a community because I feel like we still need to build art education in Oman. We have classes, we have more opportunities than we did back then, but it's nice to have more galleries. And I opened that in November, and currently we've done about 5 exhibitions for different people. We've had a 4-year-old do her own little exhibition. using different ceramics, and she did some t-shirt designs. My journey is still ongoing. I'm still trying to figure out who's Sophia and what is Sophia's art. A lot of people ask, what is your signature? Because you do everything. And I said, because I'm still finding myself. And it's okay to say that. You don't have to have a signature when you just graduate or 5 years from now. Probably till 40, 50 years from now, you're still trying to find yourself. It's good to keep learning. So that is my short journey in arts. Do you guys have any questions? Okay. هذيك الفترة كنت أقوم كل يوم الصباح وأحط صور ناس اللي ما عندهم والناس اللي واصلين. وكل يوم كنت أشوف عليها and I would sit for more than an hour and I would look at it and I would ask myself, who am I? وكنت أحس إنه ربي أعطاني القدرة على إنه أتكلم، القدرة إني أشتغل. Why am I not utilizing it? I used to push myself every day for 4 or 5 hours and I just work and work and work and work. وكل ما حد يقول لي لا أحاول أتحداهم لأنه I don't like the word no. أنا ما تربيت في أسرة إنه الكلمة لا موجودة. You have to do it, you have to try. But that was my way of moving forward يعني. أما المجتمع you can't control it. أنت لازم يعني you have to fight it yourself whether you accept what they're saying أو إنك أنت تتحداهم. I hope I answered your question. Yeah? Okay. Any other questions?
Where is your art studio located?
It's in Areba. It's near Sultan Center, a little off the 18th November Road.
What's it called?
Sophia Arts Gallery and Studio.
From everything you've done, do you have like one favorite piece or a favorite book?
Of art? No. And that's why I said I'm still trying to find myself. I think for every phase that I've gone through, I have favorite pieces, but they're all different.